Hello and welcome again to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Glad that you're with us. Thanks for listening to us on Google Play, iTunes, or tuning in to see us as we are in all of our splendor here on YouTube and Facebook. Episode number 38 rolling your way. We're so glad that you're with us. We're getting closer to the Breeders' Cup. We're going to talk about that more. This is also the 10th anniversary of a special Breeders' Cup moment. Breeders' Cup has been going on so long, it's hard to say what is the best moment, in my opinion. Seeing American Pharoah win the Grand Slam, which we may never see again, the Triple Crown winner winning the Breeders' Cup Classic. Because honestly, I don't know if another Triple Crown winner will stay around to run in the Breeders' Cup Classic. That happened in 2015. I was there for that. That's a moment you don't forget. I wasn't physically there, but I was watching it on the tube 10 years ago when Zenyatta became the first and only filly to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. And we will talk with her owner a little later today. I'm very excited to have Jerry Moss on the show, a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the co-creator of A&M Records, as well as winning the Derby with Giacomo and having one of the great fillies in the last half century in Zenyatta. And then Janine Edwards, a longtime friend of mine. We worked several years together at ESPN covering horse racing. Janine has retired from ESPN, but keeps up on horse racing as well as college football. Her husband's an assistant football coach at Florida International. So we'll talk to her about that. And as always, Ben Chaffins is on lead guitar today as our friend Scott Hall is kind of taking it easy a little bit, and deservedly so. And how you doing in there, Ben?
Everything's good, Kenny.
Good. I feel comfortable now. Mr. Thomas Kenny is here.
How we doing, folks?
Good. Combed your hair, and you look very sharp, by the way, today.
Thank you.
So we got, this is getting down to crunch time now. Breeders' Cup, crunch time.
Starting to get serious.
Yeah. You impressed over the weekend? A couple of big races?
Yeah, I saw one in particular, Omaha Beach, who we haven't seen since, I believe, the Arkansas Derby.
Yeah, and remember, you, Scott, Ben, and I were all up at Churchill Downs talking to Richard Mandela about Omaha Beach on one of the early podcasts. And then like a week later, he scratched before the Derby. Would have been the Derby favorite. Been waiting. When would he come back? And he comes back and wins the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. So he automatically qualifies for the Breeders' Cup. There's some talk now. Will it be the Sprint? Will it be maybe even the Classic? Would it be the Mile? He's a very versatile horse. Obviously a tremendous comeback. And what impressed me is, you being a baseball fan, you appreciate that. I mean, this was the bottom of the ninth for Richard Mandela, Hall of Fame trainer. Omaha Beach doesn't do well there. He's out of the Breeders' Cup with him.
Yep.
So, to step up, and he knocked it out of the park. That was an impressive race.
Yeah, it was, like you said, Richard Mandela's last chance to make November.
And there, the boys of November. That's the breed. Although the way baseball goes these days, the World Series eventually will be in December, I'm pretty sure.
Who knows?
I don't really have a problem with it. I like baseball this time of year. And also Sister Charlie, who I think is the queen of turf. She won the Flower Bowl for trainer Chad Brown. This is her 6th straight Grade 1 victory.
Wow.
I mean, people know her in the sport. But I think to the rest of the casual fan of it, she's very kind of under the radar. One reason there's not a lot of attention given to fillies running on the turf. They have races for it, like the Flower Bowl, but it's not what you would call the one that you're going to pay the most attention to.
Just kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it is. It is. They want, it's kind of like in boxing. You like to know the heavyweight champ. Maybe the middleweight kind of gets some attention, light heavyweight, something. But in horse racing, who's going to run the Classic? Maybe who's a sprinter? Who's going to run the dirt mile, Bricks and mortar because of being so good on the turf, yes, this year. But Sister Charlie's won 6 in a row. She is going to try to become the first to win consecutive filly and mare turf Breeders' Cup. Never happened. She won it last year. She would likely go into this as the favorite this year. So I thought those were 2 big performances over the weekend.
Dominant.
Yeah, I mean, they just come through, step up, clutch time when they're supposed to. Later on, we got winners today, haven't we?
We do. Stay tuned for that.
2
in one episode.
2 in one episode. We're giving away dinner. We're giving away a fan.
That's right.
Wow. Ben, anything else we want to give away today?
Just our love to the fans.
That's us. I know they're feeling it out there. much as we are in here today. Have you ever been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, either one of you guys?
I have not.
Not had the opportunity.
If you have a chance, go to it. I've been to a few of the Hall of Fames. Baseball is a tremendous Hall of Fame if you're ever up in Cooperstown. Good. Canton is a nice Hall of Fame, for pro football, really, really terrific. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is just a neat experience. And Jerry Moss is in it. And we're going to talk to him in just a matter of seconds about Zenyatta and Giacomo and A&M Records, which had acts as diverse as Joe Cocker and Sergio Mendez and the Carpenters and the Police. Now, that's a career in rock and roll. And then later on, Janine Edwards from ESPN will be joining us. And winners will be announced before this show is over. Stay with us. There's more to come here on episode 38 of The Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Facebook. Be sure to follow us at Horse Racing Show, as people have throughout the U.S. and in 17 countries. And it's a real honor now to have the only person, and I think the only person that will ever do this, own the Kentucky Derby winner, a Breeders' Cup Classic winner, and be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We welcome in Mr. Jerry Moss. You had, and this is the 10th year anniversary of one of the great performances in Breeders' Cup history, the Classic with Zenyatta. I'm sure that's going to be brought up many times in the next few weeks leading up to the Classic at Santa Anita.
Yeah, she's still the only filly to ever do that, so that's quite an accomplishment, Until somebody comes along and does it, I think there will be. She stands alone, and she's fully capable of doing all that. She was a great filly.
What was it like when you're sitting in the stands watching her? For me, I'd watch her and go, she can't do this. And here she comes again, and did it 19 out of 20 times. As my dad said, she was like the Silky Sullivan of her time. Young people Google it. He was this great come-from-behind runner back in the 50s who would just, people would think he's out of it, and then he would win it, and she did the same thing.
It was amazing. I mean, quite amazing. Because many times I say, well, let's go, Mike. Come on, let's go. And he'd hold on. And then finally let her go, and she was amazing, just incredible.
Did you ever get nervous that she may not be able to do it, and then she would?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Plenty of times. She faced some really good fillies, and one of them was very fast and had her beat all the way down the line until she finally came up and won by, big nose, incredible. And Mike always said when she won by a nose, it always meant that it was not that big a nose. It was a bigger nose, in a sense. He knew that she had all the guts to win. So he wasn't afraid to let her out.
Zenyatta named for an album from the Police. You're friends with Sting, and the Police was one of the many great acts that recorded with A&M Records that you co-founded with Herb Alpert.
Right.
And she had a little dance to her, Jerry. I mean, I'd watch her come out. She looked like she was dancing a little bit.
It looked like she let off a lot of steam doing that. She got rid of a lot of, early morning stuff when she had her little dance. And it was great because the audience always watched for it, and when she did it, they got applause. She was just special, and when she came out, the crowd came out. It was really great to see it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been maybe American Pharaoh that I can remember in covering this sport for a long time as loved as Zenyatta. People that barely knew horse racing suddenly became Zenyatta fans.
Right, that was it. She had a lot of people. She was just amazing. And it was John's way of doing it because John Sheriff, our trainer, opened up the back door in a way when he allowed people to come on the track in the morning and watch her train. And soon we had 100 people out there.
Yeah.
And the crowd just got bigger and bigger.
And like you say, everybody wanted to see her and,
take a picture.
And take a picture. And you guys were always so open to it. I think that opened it up for a lot. I don't know. In some ways, to me, you might have been the forerunner for the way they opened things up with American Pharoah a lot of times. You knew you had a special horse, and the public wanted to see a special horse.
The public did, and everybody was very, very respectful. Nobody shoved anything in their mouth.
Yeah.
That was what we were concerned about, somebody putting something in their mouth.
Right.
So if everybody cooled that part, everything was fine. Everything was great. They petted her. They did everything. They loved her. They took pictures with her. Everything was great. But don't put anything in her mouth, please.
That's right. No peppermints, no apples or carrots. You may mean well, but don't do it around any horse. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we go and we give somebody something, a carrot or something, I give her, but we would watch the way it was done.
Yeah.
But nobody tried anything in those days.
We're talking with Jerry Moss. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a record executive that co-founded A&M Records with Herb Alpert, another one of the legends, and of course owned, among others, Giacomo and, as we're talking about, Zenyatta. And Jerry, how do you go into the horse racing business? Was that something growing up in New York that you were into as well as music?
No, it happened through the record business, actually. Nate Duroff, who is a manufacturer of our records, said that somebody had retired and decided to become a trainer at Hollywood Park at Santa Anita, and would we claim a horse with him? And of course I said, no, come on, Nate, I'm just too busy. I can't do that. So Nate had a slight stroke, and I'm in the hospital with him, and I'm standing there with a balloon, and he says, now that I'm coming out, you can train a horse with me. You can claim a horse with me. I said, okay, all right, let's do one, see what happens. So the first horse we claimed actually won a race 2 races later, and made us feel real good, Herb and I, and we kept it up till eventually a friend of ours, Burt Bacharach, said to us, you guys are too classy to claim horses. You got to buy a horse. So we ended up asking this trader to buy a horse for us. And he bought a horse that was pretty good but had been injured, and the horse never quite lived up to itself. So Herbie decided to get out, and he didn't come back. He came back with his brother a little bit, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed bringing artists to the track and talking to them during the long break, and it was fun.
Yeah, and there's, I guess there's a certain rhythm to horse racing. In the morning, the track, and the whole atmosphere. And
well, the mornings are a little difficult now because the mornings are at Santa Anita, and that's a big drive for us. Whereas Hollywood Park was fantastic. Hollywood Park was 20 minutes.
Yeah. I miss Hollywood Park. I look at it when I'm flying into LAX. Well, I can't even see it now, but I used to be able to see at least the outline of the track, even after they tore the grandstand down.
Right. Yeah, but it's gone. It's literally gone. No more Hollywood Park. Nothing. Not a question about it.
Your friendship, it's amazing. I was looking back, and I have so many A&M records, by the way. I remember my sister would learn to play the piano. She's very talented at that, listening to the Carpenters.
Carpenters are big.
And I used to do a show when I was a kid, Jerry. I had a little radio show, and it was a sports show, and I played Nothing from Nothing by Billy Preston.
Yeah, Billy Preston was a great artist. He wrote beautiful too.
Yeah, and then
hit.
I've got Peter Frampton. I think everybody in college in the 70s.
The other night.
Is that right?
Peter played the Forum, and he was fantastic. He was unbelievable. It's just great to see him again.
Everybody has Frampton Comes Alive. I think that double album. If you were in college or in high school in the 70s, don't they?
Yeah,
I think so.
Mike Myers say they gave it away with every box of Tide in the supermarket.
Box of Tide, that's right. That's a throwback, isn't it?
Anyway, it was a big deal. That album started selling 50,000 records a day, and it didn't stop the whole year.
Well, what amazed me is just looking back on all this, and I had to read up on some of it myself. I forgot about like Cocker and the Flying Burrito Brothers, Carole King, the Go-Go's, Amy Grant. I mean, this is quite an eclectic mix that you had at A&M Records. What was that whole process like when you're bringing all this together in the 60s and 70s?
I think the idea was that we wanted people that could give us something different, give us a different slant on things. And we jumped on that pretty hard. And, we got an artist like Cat Stevens, who was a fantastic artist, and just did things differently. And didn't just have hit records, but created a style in itself of its own. And he had a lot to say, and he was great. He sold 2 real big records for us.
I don't know if the record business today would be able to do what you guys did at A&M. I mean, everything seems pretty formulaic from country to pop to rock to whatever's going on out there. The genres all kind of seem like the same people are doing the same thing over and over. I may be wrong, but I just don't see like a lot of different mixes out there.
You're probably right. I don't pay much attention to it, so I don't see much of it at all. My son's in it, and I keep asking him, how's it going, what's going on, about that part. But, in regard to the business, I don't see the same thing happening. I see you don't have records anymore. People aren't selling records.
Yeah.
People are selling, basically how many tunes do they get on, how many listens do they get on a particular song, and it's not a question of a sale anymore. It's a question of how many versions do you get played. It's not the same.
Sometimes progress isn't always progress, in my opinion.
I agree with you. But I just like it all. But we play the music a lot in the car, but you just don't hear what I used to hear. And somebody was a little different.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You might be the only guy that actually had the Carpenters and then the Flying Burrito Brothers. Now, you talk about opposite ends of different kind of creativity. See, that's what always impressed me about A&M and the independent spirit that you had.
Well, Flying Burritos were a very special group. They had a guy in there, and I can't remember his name right now, but he was just so creative and wrote great songs. I just can't remember his name.
Graham Parsons and some of those.
Parsons,
yeah,
that was the guy. Yeah, he was the guy. And Graham was very talented, and unfortunately he didn't live very long, but he was an amazing guy and very talented and wrote some great songs.
And Karen Carpenter had one of the purest voices. I mean, she just had a voice.
She was unbelievable, and just amazing how big she was. I don't know if she ever knew how big an artist she was.
Yeah.
She was just so big, so incredible.
Now,
every one of their records.
Oh, yeah. And then your friendship with the Police, and specifically with Sting, who you named Giacomo after.
Well, that's his firstborn son. The last son he had was named Giacomo.
Okay.
And so we started naming it after Sting songs, and Sting stuff.
Uh-huh.
So after that it became Zenyatta and then a bunch of other stuff. But Giacomo, I see today, he's a grown man and he's an interesting kid, and he's just a great kid. And Sting was amazing. And to show you how amazing this kid is, he almost went to this place called the Moreland City Dance thing, and it was a shooting there, and he just didn't go that night. The night of the shooting, he just decided he had a headache and he better stay home.
Oh, thank God.
But he loves country music, and he loved country music, and that's where he would hang out.
He does? That's interesting, is that Sting's son likes country music. I don't know why.
Yeah, it is.
I don't remember any country acts on the A&M label. I guess the Burrito Brothers, Parsons, they were doing some kind of different kind of country, but
yeah, they got dressed up at nudies, and they did their little country thing once in a while. But we did have a country publishing company for a while, but that was very successful. But that was it.
Did Sting come out to the races with you much? I can't remember if he was there. I remember him sending a personal video congratulations to you at one of the Eclipse Awards that I hosted, but I don't remember him coming to the track. I don't know if he ever personally saw Zenyatta or Giacomo run.
Well, he had some horses early on in his career. He had a horse or two. And he used to go to the track to see them, and they became a liability, obviously. And if they didn't win, they cost money. So he couldn't wait to get out of the business in a way, But he still when he was in Lexington recently, it had to be the other town when he was in Kentucky recently, playing in front of 40,000 people.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not familiar with this town. He said, but my son Giacomo probably is. And when he said the word Giacomo, the audience went crazy. Gave him a big hand.
Well, you know, as the winner of the Kentucky Derby in 2005 with the 50-1 shot Giacomo, I wonder, did that impress any of your friends in the music business that were just barely knew horse racing? Because now suddenly you win the Kentucky Derby. Most people know what the Kentucky Derby is, even if they've never followed horse racing.
Right. Well, it was a big deal. Living in Hollywood as I do, and people would say to me, "Well, you won your Oscar, kid."
Yeah.
Like that was your Oscar. You won the Kentucky Derby. That gives you something to put in your memo. But it was a great time. It was great fun, and it was exciting as hell and a big surprise.
And you stuck the winning ticket, or what would become the winning ticket, one of them, in the boot of jockey Mike Smith just as he was getting into the saddle.
Yeah, I said, I've seen this in the movie sometimes. I'm going to do this. Maybe it's good luck. So I shoved 2 tickets in his boot, and I gave the tickets away to people because I thought that would be good, sort of like paraphernalia. It's like at least I went there, and I got a $100 ticket. So I got a $100 ticket in those days meant $5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 50-1. So just amazing. Amazing. The woman that took us around, they have volunteers that take you around the track because you're not used to operating in the Derby area, the Churchill Downs. And I said, "Do you ever take a winner around?" And they said, "No." Until then, I gave her a ticket, and so she got $5,000, and a lot of staff got $5,000 tickets. It was just nothing at the time.
That's the greatest tip ever.
Yeah, it's a good tip. You're absolutely right.
You thought that you had a kind of feeling, I think I read this somewhere, I heard you afterwards, you all thought that Giacomo certainly was being way overlooked at 50-1. You thought, based on some, hadn't really had his chance to run his race in California, that he might have a shot with the pace of the Derby of 05 to win, and he did, of course.
Well, I thought he was getting better every race. And, you have a chance. The horse came in like 16th in the standings, because all of his points were made when he came in second or third or fourth in other races, lead-up races. But the point was, he had a chance to go to the Derby, and we said, "Let's go to the Derby. We never know if we're going to go to the Derby or not. Let's go." And that cost you $50,000 to get into the Derby. I think it still does. I think it costs you that much. So we decided to go for it, and he ended up winning the race. I couldn't believe it.
That you've had 2 special horses. Horses. How many horses do you still own, Jerry?
Oh God, it's got to be close to 20 now. I think we just bought 6 more. So we're still trying. We still believe, and we seem to be getting better at it. We had a horse win $250,000 race at Del Mar on closing day, so that was pretty good.
And will you be going to the Breeders' Cup yourself? Will you be there at Santa Anita in a few weeks?
We'll be in town. I still don't know if I'm going or not. It depends on a horse and a race and a thing on that, but I doubt it. At this point, it looks like I'm not going to be there.
I was looking back. 2005 was really. I believe that was also the year you went in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Herb Alpert. Was that about that?
That's true.
You win the Derby and you go in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Most of your neighbors, I don't care where they live in the L.A. area, it's going to be tough to top that year.
Yeah, that was a big year. I guess that was a big year for us. It was a year I got to be 70 years old, too. So, amazing. So you can figure out how old I am now.
Yeah, but you're still looking good and going strong, aren't you?
Still going strong. Got to keep going. Keep going.
God bless. That's the main thing. I'm sure people ask, I don't want to get too geeky about all this A&M Records thing, but it just fascinates me because I bought so many of your records over the years. Was there ever anybody so difficult you just couldn't work with anymore?
I don't think so. I think everybody was easy to deal with. I think musicians are the easiest people in the world to deal with. And even though they're against you in some cases, they really believe if you say something to them, they know that you have their best interest in mind and you're trying to sell them more records. So I think from a standpoint of musicians, every one of them, from Burt Bacharach to Peter Frampton, they were all very helpful, all very successful, and all very helpful.
So that's interesting with the different group, like I say, such an eclectic mix at times of, pop and rock and somewhere in between, how everybody was successful. It may be easier than, although some of the trainers you've had, like John Sheriffs, are such easygoing guys, too, to get along with. I always love to interview and talk to them.
Yeah.
I guess it seemed like Jerry Moss would get along with everybody, to be honest, the few times I've been around you.
I would try, and usually it came through. And, the McCaffins and Ocala were pretty much fun, too, for a while. But one of them passed away recently, and I don't think we're sending any horses there anymore. But they were great guys at the time, wonderful guys.
And do you ever go by and have your picture taken at the statue at Santa Anita of Zenyatta?
If I can get somebody to go by there, it's another little walk, so a lot of people, they're a little lazy.
Yeah. The last time I was there about a year ago at Santa Anita, I was looking at people lining up, and I realized that I'd walked by it many times. I knew it was a Zenyatta statue, but then you see people out there when the race day starts, in the mornings, having their picture taken. And I just think it's great, the memory that she still brings to people, as does Giacomo. I mean, you've had two of the more interesting horses in the last 25 years, Jerry.
That's true, actually, isn't it? I'm glad, they're that interesting to people, and they keep looking for them, and they keep their interest going. Unfortunately, Giacomo was a sire, and I don't think he produced a Grade 1 winner, so his sire days didn't last very long, and I understand he recently passed away, but I'm not sure.
It was again, a moment that you never forget, that to win and be one of a long shot that probably shouldn't have been, but he's still like tied for third as the long shot winner of the Kentucky Derby. And Country House moved ahead of him this year, when he was declared the Derby winner.
Oh yeah, that was a difficult Derby. That was the one difficult. I think it was very difficult for the stewards and difficult for everybody involved.
Yeah, it's kind of been a difficult year, hasn't it, for horse racing overall? Santa Anita and things. We've talked about it on the show many times, but it's. I always like to point out to people the livelihood of all the people that are involved around the racetrack. That for those that are against horse racing, all the people that would lose their jobs. Don't look at just the owners and the trainers.
And these people don't know anything else. They know horses. They don't know anything else. They would be really destitute without the racing. Every year, every year there's a schedule, and every year you can change your job inside of a barn or two, but they don't go far away. They don't go far away. And people at Hollywood Park just came back. They're still working at Santa Anita, but that's the LA group. There's about 500 or 600 of them, and just good around horses.
Yeah.
And they don't know anything else. And they have nowhere else to go. It would be nothing to do with these people.
Do you have, I guess, obviously Zenyatta and Giacomo, I guess, would be your two favorite horses of all your horses?
They are.
Too many musicians to pick a favorite one or two or three?
Well, I love Peter Frampton. He was great to us the other night when we saw him, and it's always fun to see him. And Sting, of course, is just one of the most talented people I've ever met. He keeps coming up with records and hits and all that stuff later in the years. He's been hot for 28 years. He's an amazing artist. And, so many people. Janet Jackson was fantastic, get to see her once in a while. So, I've just been lucky, and, it's just been fun. It's been a lot of fun being in the music business and the horse business. The both of them kind of work together,
Well, I always appreciated is when I would host the Eclipse Awards, and the Zenyatta table for 2 of the years was right in front of me. So I would look at you and Mike Smith and John Sheriffs, and if you guys laughed at a few of my jokes, I figure I was doing okay.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. And then last year we actually won finally Horse of the Year.
Yeah. I remember that well. That was a great moment. And they had the video of Sting up there that congratulating you, I believe. That was the year too.
That was the year before. I think it was really great.
Yeah. That was wonderful times. And I hope you have continued success, and I get to interview you at another Breeders' Cup in the future, Jerry.
It would be fantastic, Mike. Thank you so much.
Jerry, thank you so much for being with us.
I appreciate it, Kenny. Thank you so much.
All right. See you soon, my friend. Thank you.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
The legendary Jerry Moss, the only man to win a Kentucky Derby, a Breeders' Cup Classic, and be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we'll be back with more. Janine Edwards just ahead here on the Horse Racing Show. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Thank you for tuning in today on your iPad or Google Play or watching and listening to us on YouTube or Facebook. We appreciate everything and always enjoy the feedback. This is a dear friend of mine. We go back to the burgeoning days of horse racing on ESPN with Today at the Races. And she went on to a 22-year career with ESPN, horse racing, college football, and basketball. She is Janine Edwards. Hello, Janine.
Kenny, this is such a treat. What an awesome walk down memory lane we're going to take, huh?
Oh, I tell you, we had some fun, didn't we? And that was such a cutting-edge show. I was really proud of the show because I tell people now, TVG didn't exist. HRTV was not even thought about. You watched that show for a live race. If you weren't at off-track betting, you didn't see a live race except our show.
Exactly. And it was fast moving, and we took you to different parts of the country, and we always had, big races with big horses, and you always made it fun. We had a lot of laughs behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And it was just good times. And that's sort of how I cut my teeth on television. And I tell everyone that, gosh, Kenny Rice and Al Jerkins and you guys that I worked with on that show back then, you really put up with a lot for somebody who knew nothing about television at the time. I was a newbie. I was really, wow. I cringe when I watch some of those tapes.
Oh yeah, but you knew about horse racing, and to me, that's the key. Do you know what is going on in the whatever sport you're covering, and you knew horse racing, and I think too that sometimes people. Obviously we prepare, but you know what I'm saying? They can over prepare and worry too much about being on TV instead of being in the moment of watching the race and talking about what they see. And you do that so well.
Well, thank you. And so do you. And I think, what made it fun was that it was such a fast moving show. And, we kind of had to fly by the seat of our pants a lot of times. And it just kept it interesting. We were always kind of on the edge of our seats, but it was great times. And I think, that show ran for several years, if I'm not mistaken.
I should have looked this up. I'm not sure when the last one we did. It was like 97 to about maybe like 04, about 7 years. Does that sound right? Somewhere in that ballpark?
Sounds I was going to say about 5 or 6 years, but 7 might be right.
I might have overshot the runway on that one. Maybe it was only 5 or 6. At times it seemed like it was 10 or 12 years, but most of the time we had fun and it zipped by. And I remember we had to call a couple of races because the audio didn't come from the track.
Oh gosh! Oh my gosh! You just reminded me of that. That's hilarious. Yeah, there were literally times when we weren't getting the feed, or I do remember that when we didn't get the audio, and you and I, especially you, had to kind of take us through the race. And then there were a couple of races where it was foggy and the announcer couldn't even see, and you and I are like, what do we say here? I don't know. But we always had fun. Then we'd go unwind at next door at the DoubleTree there in Tulsa, which was our home away from home, and they always took good care of us. And it was fun times. It really was. You made it so easy for me, and I look back on those years very fondly.
They went by fast, but things that you enjoy do. That's what I've noticed over the years, and looking at both of us. And you're retired now, although you're still busy as ever. But you went on to do football and basketball, and you branched out into other sports and had an outstanding career. Well, you're very kind.
It was nice of ESPN to take a chance on me, and they gave me wonderful opportunities to branch out. I of course kept doing horse racing, and you did NBC, as you still do now so beautifully, with the NBC crew with all the horse racing, but we worked on ESPN for a long time doing those remote racing shows together, and they were so fun. And then I was given a wonderful chance to get into college basketball and college football and some other things for ESPN, and it was a wonderful career. I am married to a football coach, and I sit around on Saturdays now, and I watch football from sun up till sundown, and I never get tired of it.
We're talking with Janine Edwards, and of course, we go back to horse racing days on ESPN. Many of you also know her from football and basketball. And look at you. You are just a college football maven now. You know all this college football. You married a college football coach. You're in Florida.
It's funny. It's funny. I'm saying to Glenn, my husband, I'm like, do you realize that they have you guys an 11-point favorite this week? And he's like, what, are you gambling now? And I'm like, no, honey, I just like to see what people think of your team. And, and I'm keeping track of all the matchups. And I can't wait to see Oklahoma play Texas this weekend. That is the matchup of the week, in my opinion. Of course, you also have Florida at LSU. But, I mean, there's some big games this weekend. So I know where I'll be. I'm going to be watching football most of the day. Then I'm going to head to FAU, where my husband is, and I'm going to watch them play Middle Tennessee. And then I'll get home hopefully in time for some of the night games.
Look at you. This is like having Danny Sheridan on right now. It's like Brent Musburger's on with us. Look at you rolling down, laying the 11. I don't know. I'm going to take the 11. I don't know.
Funny. Well, I don't know. I think it might be more like 9 or 10, but they're playing well. They're coming off a bye, so we shall see.
And he's with Lane Kiffin, right? That's Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, he's with Lane Kiffin, yeah. And Lane's dad, Monty Kiffin, is a defensive analyst, and Glenn is the defensive coordinator. He's having a great time having Monty around. He just loves picking his brain, and so he's having a good time.
Now, let me pick your brain about the state of horse racing as we know it now, because the last time I saw you was at the Belmont Stakes this year, so I know you're still around the sport. You keep up with it. I don't know if we'll ever see a year like we've seen this year, Janine, in horse racing.
Crazy. No, it was crazy. Everything from the Derby and that crazy outcome, which I have to say, I really felt for the stewards in that instance, didn't you? I mean, they were kind of in a no-win situation.
I thought they made the right call.
Yes.
But yeah, because I guarantee that, and I said this on the air before, I guarantee half the people left Churchill Downs still not understanding why Country House won the race or was declared the winner.
Right.
It's just, it was a thing. And then some of the old school guys will say, well, the Derby's always a rough race. You can go back and break down every section of it, and somebody cut off with somebody or moved into somebody's path. And for the most part, that's probably true. Let's face it, it's crazy, 20 horses.
It's a stampede. Yeah, it's a stampede every year.
But I thought this was so, flagrant that was it. But when I went over to interview Bill Mott, because he's standing there and we're waiting on the results, I thought he made the good point. If this is a middle-of-the-week race, the horse is taken down. There's no question. But obviously with the magnitude.
Nobody would have blinked an eye. The magnitude was tremendous. It was unprecedented. It was a shame for the sport. I feel bad for the connections of maximum security. Absolutely. I said it at the time. I felt bad for the stewards having to be in that position. I do think there could have been a little bit better communication all the way around as to what went into their decision. And of course, when you're at the track with 150,000 people, the PA system, maybe you can't hear, things are not being explained to you. So people were kind of confused, but I do think it was the right decision. I don't know that it could have been maybe just handled a tiny bit better, but it was a no-win situation.
So now, do you have a looking back on all the races, and I know there's way too many that you and I both covered, and you more, and people will ask me, do you have a favorite moment? Well, American Pharoah winning the Triple Crown and me interviewing Bob Baffert right after. I mean, that's just,
how do you top that?
Yeah, to me, that's hard to top. Even when he won it again with Justify.
I know. I
don't want to downplay it.
How do you top it? But he topped it.
and to me, that kind of stands out. But there are moments and races that we've seen over the years, that stand out for the uniqueness of it all. Whatever's Giacomo,
or emotional connection or something.
just something you go, wow, that was interesting. That was interesting. It was a fun thing to be at, even though maybe it won't, like our Kong winning the Breeders' Cup Classic, and nobody, Fob wasn't speaking English to anyone trying to interview him. That was some fun times. I don't know, do you have any like moments that really stand out that you just had some fun with, even if they may not be as historic?
Well, absolutely. I mean, when you just reminded me of something like, okay, and her name escapes me, the filly that won on the turf, the French filly, when the groom was running down the track, running with the horses as they're running down the stretch. Oh gosh. Gosh, I can't remember her name. Anyway, that to me is etched in my mind as one of the most endearing moments that I have seen in racing. And then, of course, you have moments, events like Barbaro, winning the Derby and then breaking down in the Preakness, and that whole aftermath. That was just a gut-wrenching thing for me to cover, and I got to cover it quite a bit because I lived in the area. And Zenyatta winning the Breeders' Cup out there at Santa Anita. I will never forget that moment when she came roaring down the stretch, and just the aftermath and the roar of the crowd was deafening, absolutely deafening. But I'm with you in all those years of covering horse racing, and there have been so many memorable moments or quirky moments or upsetting moments or endearing moments. But to kind of close out my career and to be able to cover a Triple Crown winner in American Pharoah was really the icing on the cake. It was a long time coming, and boy, was it worth it.
Yeah, because I was really beginning to wonder. Although going into that race, I honestly felt he was going to win it. Now, I will say I had the same feeling with Silver Charm and Smarty Jones, and I was wrong. But I really thought – I didn't have it with everyone. Yeah. I didn't have it with everyone. But I did with this horse. But again, like I said, I thought Silver Charm was going to win. And I thought Smarty Jones was going to win the Triple Crown. So, to still be...
I did too.
Look at us, to stay around and do it. Look at all the near misses we covered, which I think is pretty cool, the fact that we were there for that, because the anticipation. I remember Funny Side, when they let the crowd in. Remember at Belmont, and the people are running in when they first opened the gate? That's before they capped it off at 90,000. I forgot they had 120 or something. I mean, that was like rock concert stuff. I really enjoyed that.
Exactly. And, of course, Saratoga, Travers Day, every year, you cannot beat that atmosphere. Right. I mean, that is one of my all-time favorite things to be at, whether you're working or just going as a fan. You'd like to bottle that electricity and that atmosphere and just take it with you everywhere you go. I wish every racetrack and every racing fan could experience what that feels like, or just to be there on Breeders' Cup Day or part of the Kentucky Derby. I mean, those are the moments that just really fill you with excitement and tug at your heartstrings and make racing so special.
Talking with Jeannine Edwards, who had a 22-year career with ESPN. Glenn Spencer, her husband, now coaching. Well, still coaching, and you're a coach's wife, and you could talk all about college football and
Can't believe
FIU.
I'm a coach's wife. Can you believe
Look
it?
Look at you. You don't paint your face or anything when you go to the game, do you?
No, but I have been known to, and this is so silly, I have been known to, just out of sheer frustration and rage while I'm watching one of my husband's games, send him a text at like halftime, and I'm like, I know he's not going to look at his phone, and I'm like, why aren't you blitzing more? You've got to get more pressure on the quarterback. Or, and I'm like screaming into my phone, and then I send it, and then I'm like, why did I just do that?
Now would Glenn have sent you a text saying, you should have asked Baffert or Lucas this question, Jeannine? Does
Never.
he ever see?
No, never. He's a Southern gentleman from
he's a great
Georgia, and he would never. This is the New Jersey native in me coming out.
I know.
Is that, I have a big mouth.
You've covered the big events in football too. Is there a football, like a stadium, because covering SEC for several years on and off when, covering the Kentucky program, which, fortunately has gotten some better under Mark Stoops, but we would go on the road and, and go to Alabama and go to LSU and go to Tennessee and Florida. Right. I tell people, especially my friends that live in the Northeast, Southern college football,
There's
And
nothing like it.
Southwest college football, you know, you go. I've been to Bedlam. I went to Oklahoma State one time with
Oh,
Sean
that's
Sutton
great.
when he was
Oh,
assistant
that's
coach at Oklahoma basketball. We went there, and you know
phenomenal.
that was crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And you have to experience SEC football to really understand it is a culture. It is a lifestyle. I mean, you pull up, you know, in Tuscaloosa there at Alabama or Clemson or LSU or any of these places, there will be hundreds of motorhomes and RVs parked for a couple of days before the game. And these people are coming from all over the country to come to these games. They must all be retired. I don't know what they're, you know, I don't know what they do for a living.
I know people that have their vacations scheduled
Around
during a
football.
football season. Like, you know,
There you go.
if they got 2 weeks, they'll spread it out over, you know, 3 days here, 2 days here, wherever the closest road. Yeah. And they do. And I don't get it. But I really love college football and college basketball, as you know.
Yeah, I know you love basketball,
You know,
definitely.
I really, and so I can kind of get it to a point, although I don't want to take a vacation day to go watch it, you know. I'll slide it in when I can on the road, you know. But
Oh, right. Now, these people, it's a religion, and it is really something to see. Now, one of my favorite places ever to work games is Clemson, because the atmosphere is just electric and deafening. And I covered them through the whole rise, right along with Dabo Sweeney coming in, and just little by little, that program getting better and better. And it kind of really started with them winning that Chick-fil-A Bowl down there in Atlanta several years ago. That when they beat LSU in that game, nobody really saw them as an up-and-comer, and that put them on the map, and they have not looked back since. They are just amazing, and he's doing it the right way. I love Dabo Sweeney. Great guy.
you know, horse racing needs to incorporate some of these guys in, bring them over.
Yes.
And there's actually a horse named Dabo right now that I'm only familiar with this because Mike Battaglia and Chris Collinsworth are part owners. And I think Tom Hammond's in on this.
Get out.
And they bought the horse, and the horse was already named Dabo. And I don't know if
How
Dabo
could you
Sweeney
not
knows
love
that the horse was named for him or not, but I think he has found out from what I understand.
Well, if anybody
But
would love to spend a day at the races and hang out and have fun watching this horse run, it would be Dabo Sweeney.
I think so. You know, I actually mentioned it, not that those guys had not thought about it, but, you know, maybe sometime in early spring, you know, if he's still running next year.
They got to get him somewhere close to South Carolina.
I know they don't leave.
I don't know.
It's a 12-month job. You know that in Clemson and Bama and these places. But, you know, I really like that, you know, because we always had fun covering horse racing. And I really appreciate the people that enjoy their horses and it shows when they win a race, they're excited. Like, you know, I like a coach that's excited when he wins a game. And I like fans that are excited, and I like people that are excited about it. And sometimes horse racing, it's a little almost church-like. It's a little golf clap-like sometimes.
Sometimes, yes, sometimes. You know, you have to really, I love being around people, whether it's coaches, horse owners, trainers, whatever, that really appreciate a win because they appreciate all the hard work and sacrifice that has gone into preparing for that win. And, you know, being involved in sports, there are some people that sort of, they have won so much that it kind of doesn't mean as much to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you're saying. You could definitely use just some fresh, exciting blood coming in, which I think the sport of racing is doing a great job with America's Best Racing and with all the young folks that they have brought on board and some of their marketing campaigns and just some of their promotions and the things that they're doing. They've really done a phenomenal job in getting young people to the track. And I got to tell you, I'm sure you noticed this at this year's Belmont Stakes. I could not believe the thousands and thousands and thousands of young people, like 20-something-year-olds, that I saw pouring into the track.
Yeah, it was nice to see. And that's what the sport needs. You know, that's the future.
Yes. And that's what you see at Keeneland, as you know, you live there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nicely dressed young people out for an afternoon, having a great time, you know, having a couple of cocktails, placing some wagers, having fun with friends. And that's what racing should be all about.
And, I like the syndication way it's going now. I mean, I think partnerships, much more partnerships than individual owners out there. And it does open the door for more people to put up money that, let's say, they can afford to lose. Because truly, if you're going to buy a horse, you got to put up money you can afford to lose.
Exactly.
And so you can say, I can get in with the group, maybe 40 in the group, but I can get in with that group and go, and I'm a part owner, and I can have fun and say, look, there's my horse.
Yeah, you're spreading the risk. You're lessening your investment, but you're not lessening the enjoyment that you would get out of it. So it's sort of a win-win situation. And I guess one of the first people ever to do these syndications wasn't it Cott Campbell with Dogwood?
Cott Campbell was one of the first I remember, Jeannine. I met him at the Keeneland sale, like 1982, 83, somewhere in that area with Dogwood Stable.
Yeah.
And then, so many guys are doing it now.
Right. And West Point and all these guys doing it, Starlight Racing, doing a great job. But yeah, you're right. That if that's what it takes to bring more people into the sport, I say that's a smart thing, and it's a wonderful way to get more people involved.
And of course, you knew this. I mean, you were a trainer and you rode horses, and you didn't just step in front of the TV camera one day. You came in with a lot of credentials. So you've seen horse racing from the ground up.
Yeah. My background was in racing for many years, and I like to brag now that I worked for Mark Casse, because now Mark is just really at the forefront of the sport, and congratulations to him. He's doing a phenomenal job. But I learned a lot from Mark. I galloped for him. I was an assistant trainer for him. And just it always helps when you have a little bit of background in the sport that you're covering. And that's why basketball, especially for me, was difficult, because it's not a sport that I ever grew up watching and had really no knowledge of. So that was a learning curve when I started covering basketball. But
sadly, you had to watch the New York Knicks for years, so you didn't really get to see basketball. Oh, geez. And I remember the Willis Reed and Dave DeBuscher, Walt Frazier. I remember those guys,
Gosh,
and now
40 years later, nothing's changed.
No, then, what a gap.
Oh, my goodness. Poor Knicks. Knicks.
But you did, like you say, you brought that in, and I always liked the insight that you brought, and Caton and Charlesy and the other people I was fortunate to work with that could slide something in, and you can only get that. Best. Yeah, you can only get that from experience.
Yes, exactly. And Caton, of course, is one of the best in the business right now, and has been for a long time. Charlesy was my idol when I was younger. Watching her on television, I wanted to be Charlesy Canty. And just, there are a lot of phenomenal, knowledgeable women who do a great job, like Brittany Urton that you work with on NBC. Tremendous people that are great advocates for the sport.
And Janine Edwards opened the door for some of that generation coming up. Look at you.
Oh, you're sweet. You're sweet.
Well, thank you for being on. I want you to come back sometime.
I would love to come back.
We'll get Glenn on, and I want to find out what he thinks about your interviewing skills while you second-guess his coaching.
And ask him what he thinks about getting those text messages after the game when he sees that his wife is texting him at halftime. Oh, jeez. Not good. By the way, for anybody that's listening, he doesn't look at his phone during games. So
I know that.
It's all for naught.
Hey, good luck at the game this weekend.
Thank you, Kenny. And hey, if I don't talk to you, have a wonderful time at the Breeders' Cup.
Enjoy.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Janine Edwards. Dear friend, we worked years together at ESPN. And we'll be back with more of the Horse Racing Show right after this. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. Cannot thank you enough for tuning in this week and following us on Facebook at Horse Racing Show on Twitter, watching, liking, subscribing to us on the YouTube, as well as listening on Google Play and iTunes and 93.9 The Ville in Louisville. A few moments to go here. Jerry Moss, what a great guy. Love talking to Jerry Moss. Nobody will ever do that. Go today and say, hey, who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that's had the Derby winner and the Breeders' Cup Classic winner? And I wonder how many people will know Jerry Moss. And I think horse racing should promote that all the time. That every year at the Breeders' Cup, it should be talked about. Because that's Guys like him, a vanishing breed of coolness with Jerry. And Jeannine Edwards, again, longtime friend. It's so good to catch up with her. Now, we have come to that portion of the show where it is time to announce 2 winners. We're wrapping up the J. Alexander's Dinner for 2. We've had 3 previous winners, so this is the 4th and final winner. It's a gift certificate for 2, well over $100 value if you want a nice steak and crab cakes and all the things that go with it. And I love to go to J. Alexander's with the locations in 11 states. So, Mr. Kenny, you have a winner, I do believe, for the J. Alexander's.
Yes, without further ado, thank you, Kenny. Robert R. from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Ooh, beautiful country, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We talked about college football earlier. If you ever have a chance, go watch a LSU football game. That is an experience like few others anywhere.
They're pretty wild down there, aren't they?
They enjoy it down on the bayou. Goodbye, Joe. Me gotta go. Me oh my oh. Robert R., congratulations. Baton Rouge, J. Alexander location there on Blue Bonnet Boulevard. We'll be in touch. And now, we have 2 of them to give away. We're giving away our first today. That would be our big-ass fan.
Yes, it's a haiku fan, 52 inches. You know, not larger than your home, but you can fit it in there.
Large enough.
That one's going to Ashley M. of Lexington, Kentucky.
All right. Congratulations, Ashley, winning our debut fan. 1 more to give away next week.
That's right.
Wow. Tim Wasberg's in the neighborhood today. Thank you for making a guest appearance, just for stopping by. He's a Hollywood producer. He knows people who know people.
Yeah, I think he's talking on the phone right now. You know,
he's on the phone.
Yeah, he's making.
You know
deals,
why, don't you?
big
Because he's
swings.
always making deals.
That's right.
He's making deals. He's probably trying to buy the film rights to this show.
He's working on it. I think he's in negotiations.
He could get them cheap, I tell you that, Tim. Thank you all for being with us. Next week, we get closer to the Breeders' Cup. We're going to talk with Eddie Olczyk will join us next week, my good friend. We work at NBC together, of course, a top hockey analyst as well. He has a new book out. It's a terrific read. So we'll talk with Eddie next week among our guests. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Tim. Scott will be back with us next week. Until then, I'm Kenny Rice. Thank you for watching and listening to episode 38 of The Horse Racing Show.